How do you position yourself as an expert and an ambassador? And how do you get seen in a way that shows up and not just that you're transactionally based?
Hello and welcome to episode 250 of the Smart Agents Podcast. As always, my name is Michael Walter and I'll be your host. On today's episode, we are joined by Ryan Smith, founder of Launch Your Farm. With 17 years of experience as a real estate agent and nearly 6 years spent teaching geographic farming strategies, Ryan has helped countless agents grow their businesses by becoming true community experts. Throughout our conversation, Ryan shares advice, tactics, and mindset shifts for excelling with geographic farming. From his CPR framework, community positioning and relationships, to his step-by-step bridge blueprint, this episode is packed with actionable advice to help you build a hyper-local brand that lasts. But before we get on with the day's featured interview, if you or someone else on your team has an incredible story of real estate success or tips to share with our community, send us a message to feedback@smartagents.com. We're always on the lookout for new guests to inspire our listeners. And lastly, if you enjoyed this conversation and want to hear more, be sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents Podcast. We stream on all major podcasting platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and YouTube. All right, let's get on with our conversation with Ryan Smith. This really could have lasted several hours, so if you're interested in learning more from Ryan or his coaching programs, be sure to check out the episode descriptions for links. Well, really, the way I like to start everything out is if you could introduce yourself. I know we had you on the podcast a while back, a long time ago, but love to reintroduce you to our new listeners here.
Awesome. So my name's Ryan Smith. I am a licensed agent myself. So I've been in the business for 17 years now. About 5 years ago, I shifted gears and I started doing what I really loved, which is helping other agents grow their businesses. So I'll give you the real short version of my story. I got licensed, like I said, 17 years ago. I was 25, got out of a relationship and I wanted kind of a fresh start. Moved 3.5 hours away. I didn't know anyone. I joined a team, kind of figured things out, started learning the ropes. I was thankful I joined the team. I learned a lot from that. Moved again after about 2 years for love. So I moved, started over, restarted my business from scratch again, had to kind of relearn the business again in a whole new area, a whole new market. And then I was working there for a few years, was enjoying it. I tried everything. I did online marketing, offline marketing, everything and anything. And then I dabbled in geographic farming. I sucked at it, wasn't good at it. Moved again. My mom got sick and I was driving back and forth to see my parents. And then I moved and I took a job coaching as a productivity coach in our office. And I started helping other agents and I started really seeing what was working, what wasn't working. I was sharing things I've learned, helping other agents and really giving back to those agents. And then I realized there's more to this. Let me try farming again. So I started doing geographic farming with my own spin on it. And I partnered with a business partner and we started our farm. We launched in an area that had no sales, no experience, hadn't really sold in the area before. We launched in September. We got our first listing in December. And over the next 15 months, we did 17 transactions in an area that had no sales, no experience in. And then I started realizing that there was a different way to do farming than most agents have been taught. And for a lot of agents, if they have done geographic farming, if they know what it is, usually it's, in my opinion, taught wrong. It's old school. The strategies are out of date and agents have a real misunderstanding. So I decided I wanted to kind of really reframe that and reshape the industry and help agents really realize what's possible with geographic farming in a new way. So I started doing my coaching and training, and I've now been doing that for the last 5 years, helping agents really figure out what farming can be and how they can grow their business with modern strategies and tactics. So that's me in a nutshell.
Awesome. Well, and you just said it. You talked about how agents, if they've heard of geographic farming, they might not exactly know what it means. So I'd love to get your, what does geographic farming mean to you, and how do you think agents, what kind of mindset should they be going into with it?
Perfect. Yeah, it's a great question. I think it starts with a kind of core foundation. And for me, what I realized was most agents have an idea of that geographic farming is a strategy. So they look at the strategy itself. They look at its postcards. And that's usually the most number one common thing. People say, well, it's just send out a bunch of postcards. So a lot of agents look at it from a wrong angle. And they look at it as, what is the strategy I'm doing? And for me, I look and start back with what is the foundation of really what it's about. And I developed this thing called CPR, which is community positioning and relationships. And after having my own podcast and interviewing hundreds of agents and coaching thousands, I realized that there's kind of three key things that the agents who did really well with farming had in common. So that was community first. So being a community-based agent and not a transactional agent was huge. A lot of agents are just looking for the next deal, and they ignore the community aspect of it. So the agents who did well were the ones who were community focused. The next part is positioning. So how do you position yourself as an expert and an ambassador, and how do you get seen in a way that shows up and not just that you're transactionally based? So how do you become that expert? Doesn't mean you have to have sold more homes. It just means, how do you position yourself so that people build trust? They build loyalty, similar to what you guys do. It's built in the behind the scenes of the marketing and how you do that to position yourself. And then how do you show that you're an ambassador and you care about the community? And the last part is relationships, and focusing on building new relationships and strengthening the ones you have. So that's the kind of foundation of what I believe. And then the strategies you put into it can be completely different. What I do, what you do, what someone else does can be layered on. And really the key for me is, because I teach geographic farming, it's becoming an expert in one geographic area. So it's hyper local, staying hyper focused, not driving all over, trying to be everything to everyone. It's really becoming that expert in the community and really being the name that people trust, building the relationships people want to connect with, and really focusing your energy and effort into one area. So that's, again, a long-winded answer to give you a different way of looking at it.
Right. Well, and so, if somebody's, listening to this and say, okay, now I want to actually really kind of start targeting an area. What's kind of that, kicking out? Like, where should they start in determining what would be a good area to actually target?
That's perfectly rolls into what I teach. So I have a thing I call the bridge blueprint, and I can go through that if you want, and I can kind of explain how we do that. And basically the bridge blueprint was my architectural design of what geographic farming looks like and what it could be. And what I noticed was a lot of agents were building certain blocks and building certain pieces, but never really having a complete bridge. And if you think of a real bridge, you can have this amazing bridge, but if you're missing a piece and you can't get across, it's completely useless. So I started looking at it as, what are those key foundational pieces that you must have, in what order? And that's where I developed the bridge blueprint. So the first step is exactly what you mentioned is the area you're focusing on. So my first step is your market. So what is the area you're going to focus on? What area you're going to be specializing in? Where are you going to focus on? Now we can go into how you choose it. There's different strategies. You tell me how in depth you want me to go. We can dive in deeper.
Yeah. I mean, touch on it. Yeah, just, kind of, tell me a little bit about how somebody goes about, choosing that area, whether that is, is it kind of determining what types of clients you're wanting to go to for, and seeing how the demographic layout of that area is? Like, how do they really start honing in on an area?
Yeah. So what I always tell agents is there's never one right or wrong farm. And a lot of agents are like, tell me what the best area to farm is. And I always say it depends on what you want. So one of the things I tell agents to start with is their budget. If you have your budget in mind first, then you can work backwards from that. And I don't just mean like a financial budget. I would say there's the financial side of it, but there's the time budget. So how much time and energy can I commit to doing this on an ongoing basis? How much resources am I going to commit to this? And then how much mental energy can I commit to doing this? And you have to have a budget that you can do over time. And it's not just throw a bunch of stuff at it for a month and then go, okay, let's hope something happens. So you have to start with, how much am I going to invest in this? Time and money and energy and resources, and then work backwards from that. Then there's, what strategies am I going to do? But the actual metrics of when you're choosing a farm, there's a lot of factors that go into it, at least in my opinion, that should be considered when choosing the right farm. In my experience, a lot of agents have been taught the wrong things. And the number one thing that most agents are told is choose an area with a high turnover rate. So how many homes sell? So if you don't know, it's how many homes sell in a 12-month period divided by how many homes there are. So if there's 1,000 homes and there's 100 sales, it's a 10% turnover rate. The problem with that is it's like measuring your overall health by checking your blood pressure. It's a metric and it is important, but it's not the total picture. So you have to look at things like price points, competition, style of homes, trends in the area. Are things moving up, moving down? Any potential new builds, or if there's growth in the area, your connections to the community, any relationships you may already have, the demographics in the area, who are you trying to reach, how you're going to reach them. So there's a lot of factors that go into choosing an area that's going to be the right fit for you. Again, I wish there was an easy, just, hey, press this button, there's my farm. So, and I always say, it's like, what's right for me is not going to be what's right for you, depending on how many homes I'm going after, depending on what I'm going to do in the area, depending on what my overall goals are. So there's a number of factors you should consider, but the big ones are really price point, number of homes, style of homes, competition, demographics, and then your strategies. And when you can kind of look at that holistically, you can say, okay, this is a good fit, this isn't a good fit. Another thing that I think agents should consider is opportunity to grow in the farm. And a big mistake that I see a lot of agents make is they try to choose a massive area, too big, and then they start farming it, and then they blow through their budget, they blow through their time, they can't follow up with them, and then they scale back. So I always say your farm should be something that you scale up from instead of scaling back from. So you have to make sure that you're intentional with it. So when you have the right market, that kind of sets the foundation for what you're going to do, how you're going to follow up, what kind of things you're implementing it. And when you have that foundation, that becomes the base. Now, you can always shift, you can adjust, you can change. But what we don't want to do is pick an area, try it for a month and go, it's the area, it sucks. Try another area, it's the area, it sucks. And you got to commit. So pick an area. And there's some decent things we should be looking at. And there's some things where you can say, okay, this is a good farm. This is good enough. I can farm this area and then build off of that, which in the bridge, the next step is your mindset. So I always talk about you have your market, you know who you're going after. Now you have to get into the right mindset because that is one of the most critical parts. For a lot of agents, their mindset is a one and done. Let's just try something. Let's throw out something. You and I were just talking before we were recording about agents sampling, trying things, and then not really committing. And a lot of agents will just dabble in it. And I've talked to agents and they come to me and say, well, I've done farming before. Or they say, I've tried it. And I say, well, you didn't really try it. You sent out a marketing piece and then you didn't commit to it. So you have to be in the right mindset. You have to understand, what does it take to succeed? What is it going to take to do this long term? What is it mentally am I going to have to do to succeed at a high level? Because it's not easy. And you guys see it too. There's a commitment, there's a time, there's energy you got to put into this. So you have to be in the right mindset to be successful with it. And I've seen a lot of agents have all the tools, all the resources, all the right things, but it's just that mindset piece is just, they're not thinking about it correctly. They've got they're negative about things. And that could be the difference between success and failure.
Right. And with that mindset, talk to me about, we see it all the time also, like where, let's just use the postcard for the example. They pick an area, they blast out their postcard and, they get maybe 2 calls from it that month and they think, that was a huge failure. Yep. And they never do it again. But you're brand new to the area. Nobody's seen your face before. Exactly. And that one letter, like, you got to think of it as the consumer. I don't know who this person is. You've built up there's nothing for me to tie it to.
Exactly. And that's where that CPR comes into. It's when you're community focused and you go, okay, I want to be the person who gives back to this community. I want to be the person who's connected to the community. That changes the mindset of what am I doing? What value am I bringing? How am I showing up in the community? When you learn to position yourself as that expert and the ambassador, again, it changes how you do things. For a lot of agents, their mindset is, I'm an agent. I'm going to tell people that I'm an agent. I'm going to tell them I'm the best. And then most people tune out. They don't care and they miss out. And then that relationship, you have to be relationship minded. Like if you're not relationship minded, if you're just focused on the next sale, people will smell it a mile away. They won't want to work with you. So you have to really shift how you show up, because I'm a firm believer that like how you show up mentally is how people are going to perceive you. So if you show up with a negative attitude, people are going to see that. They're going to sense that a mile away. So you have to make sure that you're showing up with the right mindset going into it.
Yeah. Well, I also think, if you're doing any kind of, geographic farming, you better be really good on your follow-up and be the person that answers when somebody calls. Yep. We see it all the time. People run like Facebook campaigns and, we'll run them, we'll help them run them. And they're like, I didn't have any calls. And then we look at their list of leads and like, you got 300 leads on this. Did you call anybody? Oh no. Well,
they're waiting for them to call you. So yeah, exactly. So the mindset's important. And then next, what we want to move into is your message itself. And that's one that I think is really important. And I know you guys do a lot with that with the agents is how do you position yourself? How do you show up with your message to have a strong message to say, this is who I am. This is what I stand for. Here's the things I believe. Here's the values I have. Here's the strategies I do. It's really, how do you get your brand out there to the world? And again, for a lot of agents, they default to what is traditionally been taught, which is just tell people how great you are, tell them you're number one, tell them you're the best, or just get your face out there enough times that if someone sees your face enough times, they'll want to work with you. And the problem with that is most agents, when it comes to that message, are just replicating what everyone else has done. They do the same thing and they stand out, or they don't stand out. They literally blend in like everyone else. So you have to create a message that does kind of 2 things. And one is you have to be unique to yourself. You have to be authentic to yourself, but you also have to show up with a message that resonates with your audience. I'll give you an example. If you're sending marketing messages to an elder demographic and you're talking about AI and Instagram and Twitter and whatever, it's like, and then you got the average age in your demographic is 80. It's like that message isn't gonna connect and resonate. So you have to find a message that is obviously your voice, but then also connects with the people that you're marketing to, because it's going to go over their head. It's going to miss it, and you're going to waste a lot of time and resources. So you have to make sure that the message is correct. And for some agents, again, they've got all the other pieces right, but that's just that message isn't right. It's just not tweaked. You just got to fine tune what that message is, and that can be what unlocks their system. And the right message can be huge. And just changing your marketing message can be a significant increase. I had a client. She was one of my first coaching clients. She was sending out, her message was sending out recipes. She sent it out for, I think it was 9 months or something like that. Sent out a recipe card every month, and she got nothing. She said, I sent it out to, I think it was like 1,000 homes. She said, I got nothing. And she was discouraged. We changed her approach. We changed her branding. We changed her message. And she got, I think it was like 11 people the first month. She got, I think, 9 the next month. Then it was like 15 the next month. And then it was like 7 the next month. And she's like, I can't believe, like, same postcard, same people, same everything. She's like, but that message and what we were offering, what we were changing, what we were promoting to them was a different message. And that just changed people's perspective. So yeah, you have to have that message nailed, and it takes tweaking. Sometimes there's trial and error, and sometimes you try something, it's like, that fell flat, and let's readjust that. But message is super critical.
Right. And so when you talking about these, the marketing messages and what you're sending out, and then also, trying to balance that, showing up as the market authority and then that community ambassador, if you will. How do you kind of balance out, that, hey, I'm qualified agent. I really know, the market here and how to sell your home. With that, I'm also, really tied to the community, so that everything's not just community based, but you're also still, promoting yourself as that qualified agent.
Great question. And I think I'll backtrack it, and then I'll come back and fill it in. So I think a lot of agents are fearful, especially newer agents, that they think that everyone's going to ask them, how many homes have you sold? And they're worried that they're going to be like, well, I have to have sold 1 million homes for people to even take me seriously. And the reality is 99% of people don't ever ask that. And it's not the same response that people think they're going to get. And when you position yourself effectively, you can eliminate a lot of that. So one of the things that we did in our farm was, initially we branded ourselves right out of the gate as the neighborhood expert. So instead of being Ryan Smith Real Estate, our area that we focus on was called the Orchard. We were the Orchard Real Estate team. So right from the get-go, it's like, we're separating ourselves from everyone else. We're differentiating ourselves from everyone else. And we're saying, we're the Orchard Real Estate team. We sell homes in this neighborhood. Again, we'd never sold a home in the neighborhood before that. We branded ourselves around the neighborhood and the community that we served. And then we started showing up in the community. We learned who the builders were. We knew what the floor plans were. We knew that that was an Empire Model B that was 1,356 square feet. This was built in 1997, and we could tell you where the parks were, the schools, the programs in the area, the resources in the area. We researched it, and we became the expert. So if you have never sold a home, you can still position yourself as an expert through programs like your own, where you can position yourself effectively, or learning to position yourself as someone who cares beyond just the transaction. Now, you can tie in the real estate transaction, and obviously the more sales you do, the easier it's going to be. But if you don't have sales, you can still position yourself effectively. So that message can be important. Where I am a big believer in is, I like to showcase what's happening in the community and position myself as someone who's connected to the community, and then bring value to them. So local business interviews, highlight who's out there, what businesses are in the area, events, things that are going on in the community. That's one of the things I did when I got started. Before I did my farm, I had a blog called 52 Things to Do in Durham Region. So I was showing things that were going on in the community. But knowing your real estate numbers is obviously going to be important. But if you don't have those, start with those things until you start to build that trust, until you build that. But nothing's stopping you from learning the sales data, what's going on in the community, knowing, again, who the builders are, what's happening, what price points, or what are the hot areas and not hot areas. That stuff, you don't have to have sold a home to learn that. So again, a lot of agents, I find, are afraid of taking that step of doing the research. They're like worried it's going to waste time. I'm like, I can tell you, because I've coached lots of agents, most agents are not willing to do that. So if you just do that, just that message can change just from doing some research and helping you stand out.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, tying that back to, your budget and knowing how much, and really budgeting in that time to become that community advocate and really learning everything. I mean, I would, my previous life, I was a video journalist, And there was two agents in the area that would come to all of the like the city council meetings, just so they knew what development projects
Yep.
were going on. And like they knew like what areas of town were going to start, building, and what, every little thing that was going on in that town.
Exactly.
They were always there. They didn't do a whole lot of talking in them. They just kind of sat there and just, soaked up all that knowledge.
And one of the things I'm a huge believer in is bringing in experts to help elevate your expertise. And this is where I like the business interviews. They're great. We did a monthly newsletter that went out to our community, and we brought in the town councilor. So for the region, for the area that we were in, and his name was Paul, and we did Paul's perspective. So every month he did a little blurb about what was going on from town council and things people should know about and things. So it's like, you don't have to have all the information. You can import that from other people and use other knowledge and resources to help elevate your message and showcase who you are. And this is where, if you look at Joe Rogan, Oprah Winfrey, Larry King, they're experts at having experts on,
right?
And that elevates their expertise. So you can leverage other people's connections, other people's relationships, other people's knowledge to help elevate your expertise. And you can do that very easily, very cost effectively, and help bring your brand up. So that's easy way to do it, I think.
Yeah.
And again, it's sometimes it's fine tuning. Sometimes it's figuring out what works and you might have an idea thinking, this is what I'm going to try this thing. And then it's like, yeah, that didn't work. Okay, try something else, see what's working, see what resonates. But one of the things I think that agents can do that's absolutely easy is do a survey. Go knock your neighborhood and say, hey, I'm going to be the agent who dominates this area. You're going to see me. I'm going to be focusing a lot of my time, energy, and attention into this community. I'd love to hear from you guys. What things do you guys want to see here? What things do you like about the area? What brought you here? What things we want to have some work done on? What things could we bring some attention to? What organizations should we support? What businesses should we support? If you just do that approach, start with that and say, hey, listen, you don't know me yet, but you're going to see a lot of me. I want to hear from you guys. That alone, if you just do that, can absolutely separate you from the competition and give you amazing resources and information that you can leverage to establish a stronger message and really build a stronger brand.
Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to, so somebody's, established their farm and is, sending out those marketing messages, what some of your like, your KPIs or like those, those timeframes of what you want to allow some of this marketing to kind of breathe and work for you to determine whether or not this farm is right for you, or do we need to pivot?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I think it comes down to there's two kind of key things that I always say. You have to think long-term and act short-term. And you have to have a long-term plan and stay committed to it, but you also have to take action now. And I find agents usually fall into one of those two camps and don't merge them. So you get agents who are like, yeah, it's going to take years before I see results. I'm okay. And they're not doing things that are actually getting results now. And they've got this long-term plan and 2 years goes by and they haven't got deals and they're like, what the heck? Or you get the agents who are like, hey, I'm doing stuff now. And then they're like, I didn't get a result now. And they're like, I got to get out of here and change it. So you have to have that balance. So generally, in my experience, if you're doing the right strategies, I've seen agents get deals in a month, but usually it's 2 or 3 months of if you're intentional and purposeful with what you're doing. And you should start to see the first deal within at least 6 months. Like if you're not getting a deal within your first 6 months, you're probably not doing the right strategies. You're not approaching people correctly. I've seen my aim is 10% market share within 2 years. So if you can get to 10% market share in 2 years, that's a healthy trajectory. Usually it's like 5% market share in the first year, and then you can get up to that 10%. It's just, again, how committed are you? How much time are you putting in? How much resources are you putting into it? So there's no set number, but I think you should be getting results within the first 3 to 6 months. If you're not, then I would look at, what am I doing? Why is this not working? And I think another big issue is a lot of agents, their approach is, again, they go from that, I'm going to get my name out there message. And that's what they're just going to push my name out there and then hope someone remembers me. And that's usually why it takes 18 months to 2 years to get results, because you're hoping that you send enough postcards and someone goes, oh, I think I should call Ryan. Yeah. And they're not purposeful with it. So my approach is always, how do I get people to put their name or to put their hand up? How do I get them to really say, hey, I'm interested? And I'll share this because it's really powerful, and I think if people take anything away from today is this key thing. I was doing a training for an office a couple months ago, and one of the gentlemen asked, he's like, I've been farming this area for a couple of years. He's like, I've been sending out stuff, And he said, I haven't done any sales. He's like, I just don't know why. He's like, everyone knows my name. He's like, I don't know why people aren't calling me. Everyone knows my name. So I said, can I be blunt with you? And he's like, sure, yeah. And I said, okay, so everyone knows your name. I said, how many of their names do you know? And he's like, none. I said, there's your problem. So if you're not doing anything to know who they are, get to know people, connect with them, build relationships with them, that's where most people fall flat. So it's, if you're just relying on hoping, just mailing out something, and then you're not getting to know people on the other side, if a lead comes in and you don't follow up with them, if you're not building relationship with them, you're not connecting with them long term, that's a huge opportunity for you to make those changes. And I think if you can make that change, that's going to separate you from everyone else.
Yeah, definitely. I'm a big prescriber and like really, really being active in the community that you're trying to, market yourself in. I was a couple months ago, I had an agent on from California, and she, twice a week, she makes sure that from 8 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock, she is working out of her local coffee shop. They have like a, real nice, like kind of Main Street area where a lot of people walk in and out from the businesses, and she is always set up there. And every barista knows her, like everybody walks in, she knows everybody by first name. And she's like, I don't do any other marketing besides sitting right here.
Exactly. And that relationship will pay the bills way more than sending out a postcard month after month. And those relationships it's hard to put a price on it because they are so invaluable. And that is where you can grow a huge business. So it's like, if you don't have a lot of money or a lot of time or energy to go out there and meet people and get to know them. And that is going to be something that really helps. With the bridge, the next method the next thing we talk about is the methods, which is how do you go out there and actually get people to put their hand up? How do you get your name out there? I'm not going to sit here and tell you a whole class. I could literally teach a whole 1 hour session on strategies and methods. It comes down to really what it's going to work. What are you going to do that you can effectively do consistently? What are you going to do that provides value long term? What are you going to do that gets people to put their hand up short term? Whether that's postcards, whether that's door knocking, whether that's open houses, whether that's social media, whether that's community events, whether that's a newsletter, whatever it is, there's a bunch of different strategies you can do. The key really is figuring out what methods are going to work for you, what methods you can do consistently, and what methods you're going to do that brings value that you can maintain. Because a lot of people do these one and done, these big campaigns, and they're like, they try something and then it doesn't work, and then they're like, on to the next thing, or they just bounce. You have to do something that's going to help you build trust. And that comes down to the key part of it is what am I going to do that is positioning me as the expert and the ambassador, builds trust, and strengthens those relationships. So you have to figure out what strategies are going to work well, and then how do you layer them together? And that's something I teach is strategy stacking, is how do you layer your strategy so that you're not relying on one thing, one strategy, or one approach. And I use COVID as a perfect example. For a lot of people, they were great at door knocking, or they were great at open houses, and that was their like source of business. And then COVID comes along and chops their legs out from underneath them. You have to be able to adapt. You have to be able to pivot. Rules change, technologies changes, competition changes, markets change. You have to be willing to adapt and adjust and have other pieces in place to pick up the slack in case things change. So the methods are important. That's some things I teach, which we can talk about later if you want. But really, the methods are going to come down to what works for you, what works for your market, what works for your budget, and how do you apply those strategies. So it's a big piece of it. And then I'll go a couple other ones, which is manage, which is really just how do you maintain it? And I'm not going to dive too much into it, but it's the behind the scenes. How are you staying on top of what systems do you have in place? Are you automating things? Do you have an admin to take care of things? Can you make it as simple as possible? I think that's a big piece where a lot of agents overcomplicate things and they want to come up with a zillion moving pieces and then nothing gets done because it all falls apart. So for me, it's as simple as possible that you can follow. And then meet, which is the last block on the bridge, which is how do you get people to actually go out and meet you or go out and meet them? And that's the piece where, again, agents can have all of these things in place. If they're not getting people to take action, if they're not going out and having an appointment, if they're not going out and connecting with people, great funnel, great bridge. And then it's like you're not going out and meeting people, then that's a big missing piece and that needs to be adjusted. So once you have that and you have that bridge, then on the other side of the bridge, I have a visual, which I created, but on the other is mastery. And that's the last part where it's, okay, now you've got a bridge. You've got yourself from one side of the bridge to the one side of the shore to the other. Now it's mastery. So how do you build a bigger bridge, a better bridge? How do you go back and find the pieces that are missing? How do you enhance what you're doing and create a more sustainable business? And when you understand that, that allows you to go, okay, where am I stuck? And it's what I love about this business, and I'm sure you guys see it too, is you can talk to an agent, see where they're at in their business, and then you can go back and be like, okay, you're getting appointments, but you're not converting. Okay, well, then there's a problem there. You're not getting leads. Okay, there's a problem there. You're getting people in your database, but you're not converting them. So you can kind of go back and dissect. And that's why when you follow the bridge, it's like, where is the piece that's holding you back? Is it a bottleneck? Is it literally a completely missing piece? You can then kind of dissect where they're at, help them build that out, and then continue on with their bridge.
Right.
Process.
Yeah. And I think that's where, all the tracking, you gotta know what your output is. Cause we talked to, like I was, said earlier, those Facebook campaigns, people were only, basing, the success on something from the phone calls they had. Well, they missed that whole other part where we had all these different leads, but then we saw that, you weren't making the phone calls, so, really like kind of understanding the whole process and everything going on into it. You have to be able to really be able to analyze and dissect from the start of the funnel to the bottom of the funnel.
Exactly. And then it's go back to that point. Mm-hmm. Don't try to, and this is where if you look at the bridge analogy, it's like you can build an amazing meat part of the bridge, but if you don't have the message right, or if you don't have your methods right, if you don't have your market right, doesn't matter how great it is on the other side. You got to go back and start and go, okay, what's the next step? Okay, what's holding me back? Build that, fix that, adapt that, and then just keep moving on. And I've seen a lot of agents who are amazing at certain parts of the business. And it's like, they've got an amazing system. They got an amazing lead generation platform, but they're not calling. They're not building relationships. They're not staying in touch. It's like, it all just falls apart if you don't have that. So I call it the minimum viable bridge. What's that minimum bridge that you can build that's going to get you from your market to mastery? And then how do you start really tackling it and building on that?
Right. And, and you talked about having, admin help you out with things, but I have to imagine, like, really for the agent themselves, being the, budgeting your time, like your time should be the one that is spent. You should try to open up as much time as possible to be out in front of your community and be 100%. Having those one-on-one conversations. So is that, when you're working with your clients, like really kind of figuring out what are all those other little tasks that we can do to outsource, whether that's an admin or a VA or somebody like that.
Exactly. And then back in the day, it was always, how do I outsource it first? Now it's, how do I automate it first? And then how do I get someone to automate or to outsource the automation side of it as well? So what can I do to take that off my plate? That still maintains the consistency, that still maintains the value, that still maintains the personal touches, which allows you to buy back your time and focus on the relationships. I literally, just before we jumped on here, put out a blog on my blog about AI and relationships. And at the end of the day, AI is never going to replace relationships. You can have a chat bot that someone's going to chat with, but they're not going to connect with you the same way as having that relationship. Your goal, ultimately, if you really wanted to like zoom right out, if your goal is to focus on main things, it's the building the business and building relationships. And if you can focus on those things, all the rest can be outsourced or automated. It's how do you maintain the relationships? How do you grow relationships that you already have? How do you strengthen the ones you've got? And then how do you focus on building the business itself? And it's fun because you can then do the things which are enjoyable, which is getting to know people and building relationships and connecting and bringing value to people. A lot of agents get stuck in that mundane little pieces of things, and it feels busy and it feels good, but it's like, but there's you got to have that whole thing in place.
Yeah, definitely. But I think it's really, with how mainstream and how just, available, AI is to everybody, not just agents, but everybody in the world. So many people I've talked to, and what we've even seen is, because AI is so, you can, it's there, it's out there, that the real personal relationships, those one-on-one conversations, like those mean so much more. And that's what people are actually seeking out more and more, where It used to be like, I don't want to talk to anybody. Now it's like, if I get a real person on the phone, like, heck yeah, I'm talking to this
100%. And that's where, like you said, I think there's a huge opportunity for agents to double down on that part of it. And a lot of agents right now are in fear mode going, I'm going to be replaced by AI. I'm like, use AI, but don't replace your relationships with AI. And if you focus on the relationship side of things, the AI can take care of the small tasks and those kinds of things. But if you're focused on the relationships, that's where you're going to have a real opportunity. Because again, a lot of agents, I don't like throwing agents under the bus, but a lot of agents don't think about it from a relationship standpoint. They think of it as a transaction. It's like, if you just shift your attention to how do I bring value? How do I show up for people? How do I connect and create relationships or strengthen them? there's going to be a lot of opportunity for you, but it's got to be genuine, and you got to bring your real self and show up. But if you do that, yeah, there's a ton of opportunity.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's so many different kind of roads that we could go down with the geographic farming and building those relationships. But tell me again about, your program and where people can, learn more from you and get more information on the geographic farming if they really want to take theirs to the next level.
Sure. So I'll give you 3 things you can check out, and then you can decide where you want to go with it. So just my main brand is Launch Your Farm. So you can go to launchyourfarm.com. That kind of gives you an overview of who we are, what we do, the courses we've got, and things like that. You can check out the blogs and our podcast and all that stuff. That's there. If you want more serious training and you want to learn more, we've got Local Expert Launch, which is our launch program. Depending on when this comes out, I'm just putting the final touches on the website. So it's localexpertlaunch.com. That is basically it's designed to get yourself up and running in your farm in 30 days. You can take longer or shorter, depending on how quick you want to move through, but it's generally meant to go through. We go through choosing your farm. We go through the first 3, which is your market, your message, and your mindset. And we show you how to get yourself up and running. And then we have the Academy, which is localexpertacademy.com. That's more advanced program. And that's designed, we've got our key signature program, which is the hyperlocal domination program. We go do a monthly strategy we drop each month. So we give you a whole resource library of strategies you can implement. We've got your foundation for building your farm. Those are the kind of 2 key pillars. If you're getting launched, the launch is good, and the Academy's meant for people who have a farm and want to really explode with that. But those are the easiest ways to connect with me and find out what we're doing.
Awesome. Yeah. And I really think, building up a strong presence in a farm, and really, I think that is really the best way to market proof yourself, because no matter what the conditions are, there's going to be somebody and some group of people in that farm that are going to have to move, whether it's, for job relocation or whatever it is. I think that's, if, really dominating one area, that's the best way.
Yep. And then it's pivoting it too. And that's where, because markets change, things change. It's like being agile enough to go, okay, I'm not going to do this one strategy for 30 years. It's like, okay, what am I going to do next? How do I add on to it? How do I change? How do I grow? And that's part of why I created the Academy, to help agents go, sure, this is great, but what's next? What are the other things we can do? How do we adapt and evolve? Because I've coached an agent, he was now almost 40 years in the business, and he said he crushed it in his area 20 years ago, and he was doing postcards, and he was amazing. And he's saying, and then 10 years ago, things started kind of shifting. And then 5 years ago, he said his business just started like drying up. And he said, I'm just like, I'm doing the same things. I'm not sure why. Markets change, people's mindsets change, the demographics change. So you have to be agile enough to adapt. But if you're willing to do that, no one else, I guarantee you, not many people are willing to do that in your neighborhood. So do it, and you can have a seriously successful business. Awesome.
Well, I really do appreciate you taking the time to talk with us again today.
Yeah, I love it. I'm glad to share it with you guys. If you have any questions, reach out. And thank you again for having me on. It's always great. Last time we were on, it was awesome. We've had some good chats. So it's always fun to share.
I really want to thank Ryan for joining us again today and sharing all of his advice for building a sustainable real estate business through geographic farming. Remember, if you're interested in learning more about his coaching programs, be sure to check out the episode description. So once again, if you think you or someone else on your team has an incredible story or tips to share with our community, send us a message to feedback@smartagents.com. Well, that wraps things up for this episode, but remember, follow the show wherever you listen to podcasts and make sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents YouTube channel. Again, I'm Michael Walter, and we'll see you on the next episode.